everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Open College podcast series. My name is Oxana, and as always, I'll be the host for this episode with Mary McGlynn, where she talks about presentations and public speaking. So let's have a listen to what she had to say on this topic.
First of all, it's great to be back again and talking about another important topic. So as you said, I have a lot of experience with presentations and public speaking, as I'm a tutor now for over 10 years. So I've done a lot of classes, I've done a lot of presentations in public speaking, but I've also had, lots of students do presentations for me. Because one of the courses that I would do in particular is called Train the Trainer, and this is where you kind of learn the skills on how to become a tutor to the adult learner. And a big part of that course is to do a skills demonstration at the end, which is a 15-minute presentation on whatever the students are going to teach. And then I would provide the feedback, and mark them and so on. So I have so much experience with this. I've seen hundreds of presentations, and I've helped and supported students, prepare and get the best from their presentations. And also, when we think of presentations, we think of, doing it in front of a class, doing it over groups and things like that. But, anywhere that you have to talk in front of people. So we all have to talk a lot more on Zoom calls now, don't we, for work. We also, we have to speak up at meetings and everything like that. So anywhere at all that you would find yourself getting nervous having to speak in front of people, people just find that very challenging. So I'm hoping this podcast is going to help everybody in some way. So as you were talking about there, it's considered a big fear in adults, isn't it, Oxana? Like when you think of a presentation, if you're told, like if you go into a class and they say, right, you have to do a presentation at the end of it, you kind of go, oh gosh, oh no, don't you?
Oh, there's nearly a fight of like who's not it,
And you're kind of looking around, and the whole kind of energy kind of comes towards you, and you're like, oh no, and you're kind of absorbed in your own thoughts about what's going to go wrong, instead of thinking about what how you're going to make it go right and how to get the best from your presentation. You're going to think, oh gosh, all the attention is going to be on me, and what can I do to have things not go wrong instead of have things go right.
It's the fear of judgment, though, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. And now it used to be considered the number one fear in adults, and in my opinion, that's because nobody really had any experience with it. Nobody really had any practice with it at school. Certainly, I can't remember any practice with presentations in primary or secondary school. It's not until I went to university that I started, having to do presentations, and oh my goodness, that was a shock to the system. But realistically, we should have been practicing this, at a younger age. Everything at secondary school is sort of geared towards passing exams, doing presentations, public speaking is a life skill for your whole life. So thank goodness that's actually changing. So in reality, public speaking is not the number one fear in adults anymore, because it's becoming more normal at secondary school. They're practicing it more often, and it's just becoming as normal now as writing an assignment or reading a book, which is brilliant. So everybody can overcome presentation anxiety, Oxana, and I've seen it over the years with my students. And I've had lots of different levels, students who have no confidence at all, to students who have a bit more confidence, and these students tend to have a bit more experience, in their workplace or at university or whatever. But everybody can overcome the presentation anxiety. So I suppose before I move on to what you can do to help, the tips and tricks and what you can do to help with public speaking, I'd like to kind of talk firstly about the reasons why we feel this fear.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's so what I briefly mentioned before is instead of us focusing on doing well, we just focus on getting through it, things not going wrong. So what's happening here is you're hijacked by anxiety. You're thinking of all the things that's going to go wrong. You're using your imagination, incorrectly. Your imagination should be used to, imagine things going right. But instead, we're always thinking about the things that are going to go wrong, aren't we? Preparing for the worst. So straight away, that's putting a sort of a negative strain on yourself, for the presentation. So if you remember, yeah.
No, I was just going to say that people just imagine how things go wrong. I'm going to take myself in as an example, because I'm not here to speak for anybody else. But I, like, me in work, and I'm out there, I talk as much as I can, and I have no problem talking in front of people. But when it comes to like I did train the trainer with you, so when it came to standing in front of a group of people, instead of just being my usual self where I'm like, I don't care, I'll just talk whatever and say what I need to say, you do get that bit of nervousness or something. And I just don't understand how your brain just switches like that, because what's the difference? Like, what's the difference? Official or non-official, it's still the same thing. And
yeah, okay, probably in that case, if you're very confident speaking and if you've no problem speaking, at meetings and everything, but then you go in to do a presentation and you're in front of people and then you get that nervousness. It's all to do with being judged. Yes. Oxana, your fear of being judged and kind of losing respect from your peers and looking incompetent. Because I would ask students always, in the first day, what do you fear most about public speaking? And we try to address each point. And what I get back is what you say. I'm going to look nervous. I might forget my words. I might have a mind blank. What if I trip and fall over something? What if the ICT doesn't work, and so on? And that all equates to being judged, that fear of being judged and kind of losing respect from your peers, And when in actual fact, all of these things that you're thinking, Oxana, they're just thoughts, okay? 99% of these things just doesn't happen. So, most of us are just wasting our time with these thoughts. If you think about it, like you're thinking about all these things going wrong, none of it actually happens. So you're wasting all that time when you could be using that time in a more positive way. And in actual fact, everybody in the class wants to see you doing well and will understand, if anything goes wrong. And what I find, Oxana, as you've seen me in the class, if something goes wrong, and I just make a joke out of it. If you make light of the situation, it's just forgotten about, isn't it? Nobody really cares.
Well, no, that's it. I think people are like selfish creatures at the end of the day, though, that they're sitting there and they're kind of thinking about themselves rather than what you're doing anyway. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's just the nerves still kind of kick in. I remember when I had to do my first presentation with you, and you were like, right, go on, we're doing one. And I stood up there, and I can't remember what I said, but I know it was the biggest waffle I've ever said in my life. It made absolutely no sense. And then the final presentation that I did, it wasn't even anything to do with what I said in the first place. It was just a mess. But your mind just go 90.
Yeah, and I didn't think it was a mess. You see, again, that's going on in your head, all right? And then the people looking at it doesn't see a mess at all. So it's everything that's going on in your head. And this is another important fact. No one is focusing there. You're not the focus of attention, basically. Yeah. Nobody really realizes this. You're not the focus of attention, especially if people have to do their own presentations and they're going to get marked on it, as part of their assessment. Or even if that's not going on, people have lots of stuff going on in their own lives. So when you're up, doing your presentation, they're not going to be focused 100% on you. They're going to be thinking of loads of other things. If you think about it, that class that you had with me, Oxana, whenever everybody else was doing their presentations for, to be marked and everything, did you pay 100% attention to them?
Well, it depends. Some of them were good, so I did. Others I just kind of tuned out for.
But you wouldn't have witnessed, if they were nervous. You wouldn't have witnessed if they forgot something. You wouldn't have paid attention if they forgot, if they forgot a whole paragraph or something like that. You see, because you're not on the other side, when you're doing the presentation, you're very aware of all these things, and if you miss a word, you're panicking, whereas your audience don't notice that.
Yeah.
Which is what
they don't know what you've prepared. Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't notice the mistakes and everything. So And another thing I want to explain as well is the reason your brain goes like that as well is, that part of your brain that I always speak about called the amygdala. So what happens is, it senses a threat, which is this, presentation coming up. And then, it puts you in that state of fight or flight. Mm-hmm. It cuts off your cortex part of the brain, which you really, really need for your presentations, which is your rational thinking part. You need it for thinking, you need it for remembering, you need it to focus and everything. So that's cut off. Mm-hmm. And the amygdala takes over to deal with this perceived threat, which is the presentation. So you're emotionally hijacked. That's why people have mind blanks. That's why, people start sweating, shaking sometimes. They forget their words and they stumble, and what I see as well is, with the nervousness, people tend to make up for with gestures. So you see the hands flying all over the place. They might be moving from one side of the room to the other, to make up for this nervousness. So if you're not focusing on things going your way, things going well for you, if you're just focusing on things going wrong, the more anxious you're going to be, and then the more that part of the brain is really going to take over, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And then another reason as well that I find, and this is coming from my own experience, is if you've had a really bad experience doing a presentation before, which I had. I remember my very first presentation. I had to get up, and I think it was only 10 minutes, but it was my first time doing one, and it was at university, and I was just so nervous. I got up and I started shaking. I was shaking throughout the whole thing. I forgot words. I stumbled and mumbled through it. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't realise back then, but I had no experience with it at all, with presentations. I had no practice, and then turning around and seeing all these eyes looking at me, I just freaked out. Basically, knowing that part of the brain took over. And if I look back now and I realise, if I understand what's happening, it actually helps to know what's happening in your brain, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose logically when you're not in the moment, and I suppose with the kind of information that from counselling and psychotherapy and all, it does make sense, and obviously logically do you know what I mean? But when you're in the moment, sure, that goes all out the window. And
exactly.
you become a bag of nerves.
You do. You become a bag of nerves. You do, and it's a terrible. If anybody out there has gone through that, I feel so sorry for you, because I totally understand how you feel. Mm-hmm. So straight away, that thought from that day and that emotional response is stuck in your memory. That's just stuck in your memory now. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a presentation coming up, you're kind of going to pattern match back to that memory again, and you're going to believe that the exact same thing is going to happen again. All right? Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why people freak out about presentations. If you've had a bad experience, you think the same thing is going to happen again, when in actual fact, you've had experience now with it. Maybe you've matured a bit, maybe you've gained a bit more experience, whatever it may be. You're not in that exact same situation, and that probably will not happen again. You know what I mean? But it's very, very difficult to practice that, and to really believe that sometimes. But you have to think, if you have a presentation coming up, if you've had a bad experience in the past, that was a completely different experience. You're going into a new experience now, and it probably will be a lot better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So mainly the reasons, I suppose, for this fear is biological, experience based as well. And is there any other kind of reasons for it?
One of the last reasons is just a confidence issue. If you're a particularly sensitive person, and you don't like being the center of attention, and you're kind of shy, and you don't kind of like being up there in front of people, and you don't really have the confidence to go up there, probably because you've had no experience and all that. That's not going to help either, when in fact, a little help and practice, you can just be as confident and look as good as those people with lots of experience. So, don't forget, I've only witnessed a handful of people through my 10 years tutoring that's really confident in public speaking. Mm-hmm. So most of the time, if somebody does come across as being really confident, they're very, very nervous inside. On the outside they might seem very confident, and the inside they feel like they're very, very nervous. So if you're particularly feel that you don't have any confidence in it, and you're a bit of a quiet person and you don't like all the attention on you, with a bit of practice, and with a bit of help, you can actually overcome that.
With all the reasons that people have this fear of public speaking and presentations, what are the kind of things that somebody can do to help, not suppress it, but get rid of this fear or control it more?
Right. Yeah, no problem at all. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do to help prepare yourself, to be more confident with your presentations or your public speaking. So I have some key points here that I always go through with people in my class, and anyone that has to do presentations, skills demonstrations, or public speaking. This would be the main points that I would tell them to prepare. So the first one, Oxana, is know your material. All right, know what you're going to be talking about. If you know what you're going to be talking about inside out, and you know it very, very well, you're going to be more confident talking about it, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So know your stuff and be confident that you know your stuff. Read over your materials over and over again so that you know each point. And then know your slides as well. If you plan to use slides in your presentations, know your slides, because we want to avoid embarrassing situations where you're doing your presentation, and you're asked a question and you just don't know the answer. That's just going to throw you off your whole presentation, isn't it?
Definitely. I suppose there's a way to do that though, isn't there? Like, if you don't know an answer, I'll get back to you. And that's it,
Definitely. If you don't know an answer, it's perfectly fine to say, gosh, I don't know that at the minute, but I'm happy to go off and find that out for you, and I'll let you know in the next class, or I can email you the answer. And that's a good way to handle that. But it might just throw you off for the rest of the presentation. So just know your stuff and know your slides. Because I've had situations before where I've had students come in with slides, and they have slides from the work where they work, have sent them these slides, and they're not 100% sure of all of them because they didn't put them together themselves. So, and they come to class and they show these slides, and people are asking them questions, and they're like, God, I'm not sure, and stuff like that. So we want to avoid situations like that. So know your material is number one. Number two is don't overcomplicate. Don't use overcomplicating words, and phrases. Use a language that you're going to be comfortable with, and that obviously your audience can understand. Because I've had situations where students are coming in and they these presentations set up in these slides with these words that they think are going to look really professional and they're really going to stand out. And when they go and they try and maybe pronounce some of these words or try to explain them, they get sort of, they can't do it. So then that might throw you off as well. And I've seen that happening quite a bit. So, just keep the language as straightforward and easy for yourself and for your audience to understand.
Well, that's it. Simple English, actually, isn't it? Because we were involved in this project. What was it? 2019. We were involved in a project, and one of the things, it was a project between loads of other colleges and universities across Europe. And one of the things that some of the professors there that were saying was that, simple English is kind of the best way to go, because say you're talking about somebody doing a presentation on a certain topic, not everybody knows what you're talking about or what exactly you're, what you're the expert in. So break it down, make it as simple as possible. I just think sometimes people maybe think that if you use all these fancy words and, they have these long, large amount of letters in them or whatever it is, it makes you sound like you're more intelligent, where personally, just in my opinion, I don't think that's true. Yes, it makes you sound intelligent, but if you're able to break it down and make it as simple as possible, you also show that you understand it more, I find.
Yeah, and that's that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. If you're, look, depends on what class that you're in. If you want to use these words and it's just the norm, and wherever you work, that's absolutely fine. But if you're coming in, as you say, to a group that doesn't really they don't really have any experience with it, and you want to talk to them about it, you want to introduce your topic or whatever it is, you really have to be able to and be prepared to break it down for that audience. And and as you say, you're gonna you're going to come across as understanding it and knowing it a lot better if you can do that. And then third point would be to have a structure. So not only is a structure very important in your day-to-day life, because if you get up in the morning and you have a structure, you know what's going to happen, you know this way, at this time that's going to happen, at this time we have that to slot in, at this time, we're going to go and, have our dinner, we're going to have our exercise. The same thing applies with your presentation. Have that structure so you know what's going to come up. Now, in saying that, I have witnessed a few students, and it's a very low percentage, that can just come in and they have the gift of the gab, and they can just talk away about their subject, and they can make it very, very interesting. And I would love to be one of those people. I'd love to be able to just come in and talk away, and there's no problem with that. But generally what I find is a lot of us aren't like that, and we don't have that gift. So having a structure can really help us with that. So all a structure means with a presentation is have a beginning, have a middle, and have an end. So at the beginning, you're introducing yourself. You're creating that rapport with your group, whoever you're talking to. So you introduce yourself, your background, find out a bit about your group. Involve your group from the very, very start. That creates rapport. Everybody will relax, and the presentation runs very smoothly that way. Then in the middle, then you talk about your content. You go over whatever points you want to discuss, and you get your group involved with asking questions. You might want to involve some teamwork, whatever it is. So don't forget, with presentations and public speaking, that it's not a thing now. The old-fashioned way was to go on and just stand up and talk the whole time, and that just, you lose interest straight away from your audience. And it takes away a bit of the pressure from you as well, because you're not going to have to go on and talk the whole time. So break it up. Ask your audience questions. If it's a large group, questions is good. If it's a smaller group, have teamwork. And just get your audience involved in one way or another, and that'll involve your audience, and the time will go in quicker for you. It won't seem as drawn out as as if you're talking just the whole time. So that'll be your middle, and then the end, you're just rounding up what you've spoken about, what you've talked about, and then you're getting your audience involved again by asking them, have they any questions? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's just a very, very simple structure there. But a very important point is create the rapport from the start. Get to know your audience a wee bit. Have them involved as much as you can, and then make sure and ask for any questions at the end. So that's a very simple kind of a structure, isn't it?
Well, no, that's it. Keep it simple, though. Like, I don't think that, well, again, personally, I don't think there's any need to overcomplicate anything. If you can keep it simple, it's easier to follow for everybody. It's easier in your mind to remember everything. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's kind of as simple as, really. That's the point.
That's the point. And then that brings me nicely on to the next point is prepare. You cannot prepare enough, all right? Mm-hmm. Prepare all the materials that you need. And prepare all your slides. Make sure that you have enough copies of everything, and make sure that your materials and slides check for grammar and spelling mistakes. I've seen this a lot with materials and slides. The grammar and spelling mistakes, they really stand out. And what I find is, and it happens to me sometimes too. You're very happy with your slides. You've gone over them the night before and on the morning, and you're looking at them the next day, and you're with the class, and you're thinking, oh gosh, look, there's a grammar mistake, there's a spelling mistake. So a good thing to do there is to get somebody else to look at them, just to make sure that there's no mistakes on there. Because sometimes your own eye will just miss this, and that's completely normal. So it's a very good idea to have somebody else come in and look at those. Prepare any videos that you want to show. Make sure that the content is suitable and it's working properly. Do any printing that you need. Check that the audio is working on, and the speakers. Check that everything's working, beforehand. And have contingency plans, Oxana, as well. So, I spoke earlier about, you're worrying about all of these things go wrong. Okay. So, what if you forget something? What can you do? You can ask your audience maybe a question. So if you forget what you're talking about, have maybe a list of questions that you can ask them, open questions, so that they can give loads of feedback. that'll pass the time. You kind of regain your thoughts and then know what you're going to talk about. If your slides don't work, I always advise to have printed copies of your slides, just in case this happens. If the video doesn't work, be prepared to talk about it. Maybe talk about what's in the video instead, or, have an alternative group work activity for them to do. And as I said before, use humour. If something goes wrong, I find it's an excellent tool. Make light of the situation, and it's soon forgotten about. It really does work. And practice. This is a huge point. And in my classes, I would always have a trial run of presentations to get that practice and to give feedback to people of what they can, first of all, what they're doing well, but then what they can actually improve on. Practice the presentation to your allocated time, make sure it's within the time limit, and keep practicing it until you have it right. Practice on the phone, record yourself on the phone, have a practice run in front of your family or your friends, somebody that you're comfortable with. Or even if you can't do that, just maybe look at yourself in the mirror and look at your body language, look at things like your gestures and your eye contact. And the more practice you do, Oxana, the more confident you can be. And honestly, that's what really helped me. Going from where I was at the very start of me almost having a mental breakdown in my first presentation right through to tutoring now 10 years. It was through practice. And the more practice I got, the more confident I became, and now it's, I just go and I don't really think about it. And that's where we all kind of want to be, so the more practice you get, the more confidence you're going to be. The more confident you're going to be.
Yeah, and I suppose don't get hung up on the tiny details, because you're kind of your own worst enemy when it comes to self-criticism, isn't it? So just do the best you can, I suppose. Definitely.
Don't get up on don't get bogged down, as you say, on the tiny details. If you find like your gestures are a bit all over the place, if you find that you're talking a bit too fast, if you feel like you're stumbling over words, that's fine, as long as you're aware of them. You can keep working on them. Do you know what I mean? So don't get bogged down on those issues. And then I spoke before in the other podcast about your physical needs. Mm-hmm. This is very important when preparing for any kind of public speaking or presentations. The night before, get a really good night's sleep. Now, there's been research into that. So research has shown that if you get a really good night's sleep, you're going to get a way better result in exams and assessments and presentations, anything like that, rather than staying up very late at night and cramming everything in. Mm-hmm. All right? So if you're going to stay up, you're going to be panicking, you're going to be drinking coffee, your whole nervous system is going to be affected, you're not going to sleep as well, you're not going to have that restorative sleep, that's going to help with your memory. Therefore, you're definitely not going to do as well the next day. But if you stop preparing the night before at about maybe 6-7 o'clock, then just put everything away, have your dinner, have your relaxing time, go to bed early, read, do a meditation, try and get the best night's sleep you can, because you're going to wake up and you're going to feel really refreshed. You're going to just you're going to feel more more able for this presentation, aren't you? And you're going to feel more confident about it. Yeah. And also eat well, when you get up in the morning, have a proper breakfast, that you're not going to be starving by the time, it comes to your presentation. So have your proper breakfast, that's, going to really fill you up.
There'd be nothing worse than being hangry on stage or in front of people, wouldn't there not? You'd be feeling uncomfortable because you're hungry, and then you'd be angry because you're hungry. It's just
no. That's not a good mix at all.
No thanks.
We want to avoid that, and staying hydrated as well, so keep sipping at your water. Now obviously don't be drinking bottles and bottles of water, because we all know what might happen in the middle of it, and we want to avoid that as well. But all you need to do is stay hydrated, and there's been loads of research on that as well. The more hydrated you are, the fresher your brain is going to feel, and the more you're going to be able to do the presentations better. if you can, do a bit of exercise beforehand. All right. If you're feeling sluggish, if you're feeling like you just can't come around this day at all, just do a bit of exercise. This will really get the blood flowing all around the body. It'll get the oxygen to the parts of the brain that you need for this presentation. Or, your endorphins are going to be flowing. You're going to feel more energetic, and you're going to think clearer, and you're going to remember things. So try and get a little bit of exercise in beforehand as well. And very important to calm yourself and relax directly beforehand. If you're relaxed, it's impossible for that part of the brain, the amygdala, to take over. All right. So I always have do a meditation with the class before they have to do their presentations or any kind of public speaking. And I find 99% of the time this really, really helps. Now, it doesn't get rid of all the nerves, but it really improves with they're a bit more relaxed going up to do the presentation. They're still a bit nervous, but they're much more relaxed as they were before coming in, getting up in the morning, all the hustle and bustle of getting up and getting on the road and coming in, and all the stress that comes with that. If you sit them down, refocus, do a meditation, it grounds them. Do you know what I mean? And to do the presentation, and they're a little bit less nervous. And if you can't do that, meditation's not for everybody. So listen to a bit of anything that calms you down beforehand. Listen to a bit of music. Go for a wee walk. Just sit and look outside at the at a nice view. Just whatever it is, just whatever it is you can do to relax beforehand, do it.
Yeah, something you like that's calming.
Anything at all that's calming for you. And another calming technique, very simple, as I know I keep talking about it, it's the 7-11 technique, where you breathe in for 7 to the count of 7, and you breathe out to the count of 11. And if you continue doing that for about 5 minutes, that'll just you'll automatically relax. It'll trigger that relaxing system in your body. Mm-hmm. So you will just naturally relax that way. Another thing you can do is use visualization techniques. Okay, so whenever you get up in the morning, instead of visualizing all the things that can go wrong and what if this happens, what if that happens, visualize yourself coming in and everything going right. You're going to go up and you're going to talk very well. The eyes, the videos, the audio, everything is going to go right. You're going to get good feedback from your audience. Everything is going to go right. If you can visualize that, it really, really does help as well. Instead of thinking about everything that's going to go wrong. And use positive words as well and smile. This actually tricks your brain into thinking the things are a lot better than they really are. If you use positive words like, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to go in here and do this. I'm confident in what I can do. I know my stuff. I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to tell my audience about it. And smile. If you can do both of these things, before and during your presentation, that's really, really going to trick your brain, and it's really going to help with that as well.
So all these natural ways of calming down, and there's me lashing Rescue Remedy into myself.
All the old Rescue Remedy.
Yeah.
That's been there for years, hasn't it? And people are still, if that's a comfort blanket for you, take it as well.
Yeah. Oh, I know it does nothing. I know 100% it does nothing. Like my mom got, do you know what? My mom got it for me when I was doing my junior cert way back in the day. And ever since then, it's just, maybe you're right, maybe it is a comfort blanket. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Other people probably use it as well.
Oh, I would say a lot of people use that. I'd say a lot of people have their little potions, beforehand to help them ease the nerves. And it probably does help a little bit. I mean,
do you think it's sorry for interrupting you there. Do you think it's a placebo effect? I know there's a little bit of alcohol in it or something like that, isn't it? To naturally. No, it is. It's alcohol based, and then there's something that goes with it, obviously. But maybe the little bit of alcohol does do something or calm you a bit? Now I know there's like it's a spray or whatever. It's going to do nothing much.
No, and that's very interesting you say that, because some of the sprays, some of the things that you get for helping you sleep at night as well, all the natural remedies would have a little bit of alcohol in them as well, and some kind of alcohol substance. So yeah, I would say that really does help. Now when I take rescue remedy, I start to get a little bit of palpitations, which I'm assuming is from the alcohol. I can't actually take that stuff.
Oh, okay.
But look, at whatever you can do, whatever you can do that's going to help, just do it. If it's a comfort for you, just do it. If it's not doing any harm, just go for it. Another thing that really helps students as well, what I find, is a little trick called the devil on your shoulder. So that picture a little devil on your shoulder, and he's looking at you, and he's got that fork pointed at you, and he's saying, oh, this is gonna go wrong. You're gonna forget your words. Your video's not gonna work properly. All this kind of stuff. Replace that devil on your shoulder with a friend, a member of your family, a partner. All right. So just throw that devil away and replace them with somebody that you trust. What would that person be saying to you? That person would be saying, you're gonna do great. You've practiced. You've put in the work beforehand. You've prepared, you've practiced, you've had your good breakfast, you're geared up for this, you're going to do brilliant. And if you can hear those positive words instead of those negative words from that devil on your shoulder, that's a really good tip that a lot of my students have actually come back and said, that really helps. Just before I go up and I do my presentation, that tip really does help. Mm-hmm. And just a few final things, like mind your body language, wear really comfortable clothes and comfortable shoes that you're going to be comfortable in, that you're going to be more confident in. Don't wear clothes that's all restrictive, that you can barely move in. And don't be wearing shoes with big heels on them. Because that's, the more chance you're going to maybe, trip or something. And it's not going to be very comfortable anyway, walking around in big heels, So just wear something that you're going to be very comfortable in. And don't forget, to ask your audience questions, and I'd like to reiterate, it's not all about you going up and talking the whole time. Ask your audience questions, get them involved more. And have your water beside you that you can sip on. I know myself, when I'm talking a bit too much, I tend to get, dry in the mouth. So it's very, very important that you have or if you're nervous, you're going to get that effect too. So have your water beside you to keep hydrated and to prevent your mouth from going very dry. Move around a little as well. This is very important with body language, to kind of not stay in the same spot the whole time. If you can walk around a little, it's going to help with your nerves, isn't it? It's going to get rid of a bit of those nerves. And have something in your hand as well. I find this really helps, especially if you're going to be using slides. You're going to have the little flicker in your hand that's going to flick from one slide to the next. Or even if you have a pen or anything like that you can hold in your hand, you're going to be able to squeeze that, Oxana. If you find yourself very, very nervous, you're going to be able to squeeze whatever's in your hand, and that really helps as well.
Okay, that's great, Mary. There's loads of tips and tricks there that everybody can kind of utilize to help them with the public speaking and the presentations. So I suppose once again, thanks for coming on and imparting some wisdom on everybody. And we'll catch you in the next episode, because like I said before, you're a staple now. You're going to be here a lot on this show. And that, you guys, was the end of that episode with Mary. As always, I hope this was informative and hopefully will help some of you with your public speaking nerves. So for now, that's it for me. Goodbye until next time.